Okay, so Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetypes lately have been getting really, really creative, and Konami has actually surprised me quite a bit with how they're able to stay so creative and interesting and like innovative with these archetypes. However, there are some issues that I sort of have with it, not actually with the archetypes themselves, but rather their ability to really see a lot of play and get a lot of room to breathe. So, um, I'll start, I guess, with an example. Earlier today, like literally today, I was playing the Amazement deck. I really don't know why I decided to try it out. I just wanted to hop on EDO Pro and I was like, you know what, I'm going to build this. I know it came out in Lightning Overdrive and people were, talking about it a little bit. It sort of seemed like it wasn't supposed to be like a great archetype, but then people combined it with the Shadal and Vos deck and they called it AIDS. I don't know why. It was an acronym, I think. Amazement, invoked, Dogmatica, Shadal. Yu-Gi-Oh players are weird, but anyways, I didn't play it that way, by the way. I just played a pure Amazement deck. I thought it would be really cool, and it was. When I played it, I actually really enjoyed myself. For those who don't know, it basically is kind of a trap card deck. So you're using these trap cards that you can equip to either your monsters or your opponent's monsters, and they get different effects depending on who owns the monster that it's equipped to. So, one might be like, oh, you can negate stuff when it's equipped to your monster, or when it's equipped to your opponent's monster, you can flip things face down, things like that. And so they also have cards that let you kind of change control back and forth between like who is equipped with what, and you can recycle the traps and set the traps from deck. There's all kinds of really fun stuff. And I don't even know why I played it. Like I said, it just was kind of on a whim. I liked Arlenkino's artwork and kind of a lot of the like card arts are references, so I thought that was neat. I've never really been a huge fan of like playing heavily trap-based decks. I've tinkered a bit with Altergeist, which I guess was the immediate trap deck that comes to mind for most people. Didn't play Subterror Guru Control because I don't know. I like Subterrors without all of the other stuff. So yeah. That I played that today and it was fun, and then I realized there are a lot of really cool like archetypes from the last several months, really years. I think of Dawn of Majesty, which is coming out like right now. It's got Gizmex, it's got Magic Keys, it's got Sue ships, like interesting themes both visually and stuff, and also in terms of playstyle. There's, of course, like stuff from the last couple of sets. Of course, Amazement comes to mind. Even War Rocks are surprisingly more unique than I think people give them credit for. They have a lot of battle phase effects, which doesn't get enough credit, I guess, these days. The battle phase kind of feels dead, and that's actually, that's like a whole video I could probably talk about. But, yeah, so, there's a lot of different things, and that's just in main series sets. There's also spin-off sets. We got Sulfur which is kind of this interesting take on pendulums. We've got Ogdoadic. We've got, Earth's Arctic with the weird, like, subtracting levels and tuners and that weird synchro tribute mechanic. Even, like, recently we got an announcement of, like, I guess what's supposed to be an isekai anime in Grand Creators, where it's, like, all around a token, and a token is kind of like you as a character in an isekai. The point is, Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetypes have gotten really cool, and I'm always just shocked that Konami is able to continue to keep them as interesting as they have. In a game where there's really only so many things you can do, like, okay, stuff can pop, or stuff can spin, or you can sync, or you can link, they've still managed to keep it really fun, and I think that they deserve props for that. Whoever is in Konami R&D over in Japan or whatever, designing these archetypes, they're doing a really great job. So, here's where the problem comes in a bit for me, though. And it's technically always been a Yu-Gi-Oh! Problem, so I know, Paul complaining again. Surprise, surprise. You know what you clicked on. The point is, it sucks that a lot of these archetypes just don't really feel like they get the time of day. Now, I get it. Some archetypes are just going to be stronger than others. And so the stronger archetypes are going to oftentimes be the ones that see tournament play, whereas the weaker archetypes in many cases just simply won't, they can't compete and they will eventually sort of just get forgotten about. I think it's a bit of a shame though, because these are archetypes that are fun and do offer they can be somewhat competitive when played against other archetypes of the same tier. Now, this is something that, lots of people talk about. Maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! Needs like a weight classes system or some sort of way that you could play these archetypes without, like play them in a tournament setting, but without having to face off against, full power Drytron or full power Tri Brigade. Because, yeah, I'd love to be able to play my Amazement deck. I'd love to be able to play another one I've built recently is Dual Avatar, which is unique and just weird and really doesn't work terribly well. But, hey, it's a thing. It exists. Maybe could use like one more monster. But, yeah, so I would love to play my Dual Avatar deck. My Dual Avatar deck will get absolutely stomped, wrecked, rolled by the current top tier decks. But you know what deck it can play really well and evenly against? Amazement. Or Spriggans. Or, Melfi. Or, any of those kind of just lower tier archetype decks that can do really neat things on their own, but like literally none of them can like really compete in, the greater metagame. The problem, I guess, is that in Yu-Gi-Oh! There's almost this sort of like unspoken social contract with Yu-Gi-Oh! That you sort of have to follow, where if you're playing in tournament, anything goes. You should expect when playing in a tournament in Yu-Gi-Oh! To kind of deal with a lot of top tier decks. You can face Drytron wave after wave after wave every round, or Prank Kids, or Tri Brigade. You should also expect to see obnoxious things like Mystic Mine, or, whatever, just lots of floodgates. Anything goes, everything's on the table, the strongest cards, the most powerful decks. I get it. I guess the main thing is just that it would be nice if there was a way for these low tier decks to exist. But you can't even necessarily enjoy these low tier decks outside of tournaments, because even if you just go to your local card shop and ask for like a friendly game, that's not necessarily a guarantee that they'll be playing like what you might consider to be a fun deck. I've made videos in the past where it's kind of like tough to even define what fun decks are, because even outside the top 3-4 meta decks, there's still like, a pretty big tier gap between something like, I don't know, like, what's a good example? Phantom Knights is going to be something significantly stronger than, my Dual Avatar deck still. It's not like a top tier deck, but it's also far from like a low tier, mid tier deck. And it kind of feels like in Yu-Gi-Oh! When I say like a social contract, you kind of need to like make sure that the person that you're playing against, or the setting in which you're playing, is sort of established. Are we going to be using old cards or new cards? Are we going to be using like, the powerful staples like, Nibiru and Forbidden Droplets and Evenly? And are we going to be using like hand traps? Because those things really do affect, the playing experience and the viability of certain decks. Something that comes up a lot is like, if you want to have fun with your deck and you play against your opponent who's playing maybe what's also a fun deck, but like they're main decking Nibiru because they want to be able to play their fun deck in a tournament, or they're main decking Evenly Matched or like Lightning Storms, then it can still kind of take what should be a game between two fun decks. Don't you love how this term is so ambiguous and like vague? And it can take a game like that and still kind of just make it a bit of a wash. Because, well, you summon 5 times, you got Nibiru'd, but fun decks can't really come back from that, like at all. And now, like, how much fun are you guys having? It's open to debate. I don't know. And so I feel like it would be nice if Yu-Gi-Oh! Could just offer a way for these decks to be played. This is basically just another one of these appeals to the idea of alternative formats. I really think that we need them. I don't know what the best way to exactly enact them is, but one idea that I've had and I mentioned in the past is maybe Konami should print like archetypes in uniform rarities that correspond with like their power levels. I know this is like retroactively speaking kind of impossible to implement, but if like say going forward all the common archetypes were the weakest, all rare archetypes, think Tenyi for instance, because they were printed as all rares before they got rid of rares, are like, the pretty low tier ones. If an archetype is all supers, it's like kind of mid tier, all ultras, high tier, and then all secrets, top tier. Now, I get it. Before you poke all the bazillion holes in that argument, I know that's not an easy thing to implement. I know that would mess around with a lot of like set pull ratios, and then you lose kind of like visual diversity and like, I know there's a billion problems. That's not what I'm not saying it's like perfect. I'm just saying that that's like one interesting way that maybe they could do it. I mean, it'd be interesting if there was just like even like a power level printed on the card, but that just seems kind of weird. And I know that Konami doesn't really want to imply or suggest that like certain decks or themes aren't or are like stronger or better or weaker or not as worth it. I mean, we as players know that's the case, but they don't want to say it, and I understand that. But you know, I don't know. I sometimes I want to play these low tier decks or like mid tier decks because the strategies are interesting, but they just don't really get the space to breathe. They don't get enough turns for their strategy to start working. Their strategy is pretty good against other decks at the same level, but it literally just can't compete against whatever the current top strategy is, or even necessarily just a upper tier strategy. I don't know. I know that's how games work. I know there's not an easy solution, but I sure would like it if there were. But we'll end on a positive note, and I will just say that I still think Yu-Gi-Oh! Has managed to keep me really surprised and impressed with how many cool ways they can make archetypes play, and hopefully they continue to do that. There's some new ones in just this upcoming set that I want to build. I want to build a Stardust deck because I wanted to do like a cool Stardust versus Red Dragon theme duel. I wanted to build Gizmex. I just think it kind of seems neat. And maybe I'll play around with Magic Keys. I don't know. I definitely want to build Sword Souls next set, but that's looking like that might be like an upper tier thing. So we'll see. Anyways, let me know down in the comments. What is an archetype that you've played with recently that like has surprised you with how like interesting and fun it was? I know that's like a really wide question, but I think it does. It's one that varies for everyone, so that kind of makes it fun. And can you think of maybe a way that Konami could perhaps change this, or like just give these decks like room to breathe? I don't know. Anyways, that's it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Pass turn.